Hey, welcome back, Tech Gurus. This is the third lesson in our Python Bootcamp, and in this lesson we're going to be discussing basic data types of Python and Python variables. And Python variables are really important. I want you to think of Python variables like a label, okay? And a label is equal to some kind of reference in this example. I want to show you an actual example in Python so you understand a little bit better of what a variable is if you already don't know. So I'm going to jump over here to our Jupyter Notebook, and if you're not sure exactly how I got to this Jupyter Notebook, make sure to watch our previous video on installing and setting up Python. It will teach you how to install this and how to use it. I love the Jupyter Notebook. It makes it very easy to kind of code out and see how things are working within Python. So what we're going to do is, let me show you what a variable is. So for example, you might choose to use the print command, and when you use print, it always needs to be in parentheses with Python 3. And you might say hello world, like in our previous example. If I hit Control Enter to run it, I get hello world, right? Well, if I hit Shift Enter, I can start a new section. What if I want hello world to always be referenced by something else, so I don't have to type hello world anytime I need it, right? Well, I could do, how about we do, again, we're going to use message. We're going to use the variable message equals the string, which we'll learn in just a minute, hello world. I'm going to hit Shift Enter. You'll see it does nothing, but now when I print message and hit Control Enter, you'll notice that it prints what it references. So the variable referencing hello world is now printing hello world. And you're going to learn that when we're going to use variables all of the time, and it's going to be across all different types of data sets. So variables are really important to know. Just keep in mind with variables though that mostly it just comes down to that variables, think of the variable as a label, and it's holding some kind of referenced data inside of it. All right, so here's a good question. What if you need to assign multiple variables at the same time? Just for efficiency and it's faster, that's totally doable in Python. So for example, I can say, hey, I need name, I need age, I need a favorite food, and I can say add these to John. He's 31, and his favorite food is pizza. All right, that's all it took. And I've actually now created 3 different variables. So if I print name, it works. If I print age, 31. If I print food, pizza. So totally doable, very easy to do. That is doing multiple assignment. Now, let's talk about data types within Python. Well, we got a few different data types in here. The first one are strings. So what is a string? A string is a regular text expression enclosed in single or double quotes. That's how you'll know immediately that it's a string, is that it's enclosed in double or single quotes. It's not really super important which one you decide to use. But I will show you some caveats with using quotes. So let's go back to Jupyter so I can show you. We saw printing essentially a string of hello world. So hello world is itself a string. All right. Let's look at a couple other examples with strings. What if I need to print something like Katie's skateboard? Okay, well, you can do that. I'm going to print out Katie's skateboard. Great, works just fine. But what if we were using single quotes? Katie's, well, we have a problem. We can already see we have a problem. This is not going to work. In fact, this is going to throw an invalid syntax error. And the problem is that it thinks that only this part is a string, and then it doesn't know what to do with the rest of this, right? That's why this works, but this part does not, because now we've introduced some extra problems. So how do you get around this? Well, one thing you can do is just to use double quotes when you know for sure you're going to use other single quotes inside, and then it doesn't cause an issue. But there's also another thing you can do to escape out the character so that the string still works. Alright, so to back out a character in a string, what you use is a backslash. So if I put a backslash right before this apostrophe, and then I hit Shift Enter, you'll see it works. So now it knows what to do with this special character. Rather than grouping this together as a string, it now still knows that this entire thing is a string, and to only add the quote there. Now there's a couple other neat things we can do, like maybe we want to put Katie's skate and skateboard on a separate line. We can use a /n, and that will add that to separate lines, right? And you can actually group those together. It does the same thing. So Katie's skateboard. Katie's on one line, skateboard on the next line. All right, so now we have a good idea of what a string is and how to use it. Let's mix strings with variables. And this is why I wanted to bring variables in beforehand so that we could see how they work with strings. So for example, I'm going to make two variables, one called name, which is John. And then let's make another one that's called food, for his favorite food. So food equals pizza. If I hit Shift Enter, okay, we have now those two variables are stored, so I'm referencing name and food. And then I want to say, hello, my name is John and I like pizza. So let's print that out. I'm going to print, hello, my name is, and I'm going to add a concatenating plus sign for name. And then I'm going to start another string, and my favorite food is, again, I'm going to add a space here because then I'm going to add this variable at the very end, and I'm going to call it food. And then maybe I want to end with a period, so I can add one more period. I'm going to add just a period in quotes like that. So hello, my name is, and this should be John, and my favorite food is pizza. So let's hit Shift Enter. And there we go. Hello, my name is John, and my favorite food is pizza. Now let's add another variable here. I'm going to show you something that happens. Let's add age. He's 31. Okay, I stored all of those again. Now let's say we want to say, hello, my name is John, and I'm 31 years old. So hello, my name is John, and I am age years old. So this should say, hello, my name is John and I am 31 years old. Except, watch what happens when we run it. Wow, we got an error. And you'll see that our error essentially is that we cannot concatenate a type of string and int. So back up here, we haven't talked about number types yet, but we will. We're trying to use a string and concatenate it with an integer. Well, the problem is that when you concatenate integers, or you use an integer like 31 plus 32, it's going to think it needs to do arithmetic, that it actually needs to sum these two numbers up. So when you're trying to add 31 to John, it will error out. It doesn't know what to do because it's now thinking, oh, I need to add these numbers together, but I can't. And this is a string right here, but this one is not. What do I do? And that's why we're getting an error. So there's a couple things we could do here. One thing we could do is we could essentially cast the age to a string, which would look something like this. So we could say, hello, my name is John and I am, and what we're going to do is put string in, we're going to wrap enclose age in a string modifier so it makes it a string, and that works. Hello, my name is John and I am 31 years old. Or we can also use what's called format. And I actually really like how format works. And this is how you can do it. I'm going to print, hello, my name is, and I am years old. Might be wondering, what in the world? Well, now I can do name and age and watch what happens. Look at that. Hello, my name is John and I am 31 years old. So what just happened? Well, essentially, we used a format method here on our string to throw in specific variables where they go in the string. And what's nice about this is when you start, if you have several different variables and you don't have to do things like modifying with string, you can start to type out your entire string in one string using brackets, and then it's almost using these as an array. It knows that 0 goes here, 1 goes here, and we'll talk about lists and arrays in a minute. And it's knowing what to do with that. So that's using format. So format, name, age knows that name goes first here, age goes second here. And it's just very, very cool way of doing that. I could type in here 45. Hello, my name is John, I'm 45 years old. So very, very cool stuff there. All right. Now there might be some other methods you might want to use, such as using title case. This one's very helpful. If you have just all random lowercase data, like John Phillips, and I want this to instead be title case, so it's not, I mean, that doesn't look good, right? I can do this. I can hit dot title. If I run that again, look at that. It knows to capitalize the J and capitalize the P. So we're going to learn more about methods later, but you can start to see how we can use strings in data, and it becomes really beneficial. Okay, so going back, that's strings. Let's talk about numbers. So what can be a number? Well, they can be regular numbers, they can be positive numbers, they can be negative numbers, they can be floating numbers, which are decimal type numbers. So, and they can be complex numbers. So let's take a quick look back in Jupyter at numbers. Okay, so numbers. Why and how are they different than strings? Well, numbers can be used in many different ways, usually in mathematical equations. So for example, we can take 3 plus 3, control enter, equals 6. And notice I don't need to print that. That's just standard output on Python. You can just do mathematical equations right in there. We can do 5 minus 2 equals 3. We can do 8 times 9 equals 72. Or 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Okay. Now, a couple other things we can do. Exponents, which you'll actually use in some lessons later, such as 3 to the power of 2. Makes it really easy. It's just two multiplication symbols, and it does exponents that way. Also, order of operations is important in Python. It follows standard mathematical order of operations. So if I say 3 minus 5 times 2, well, it's actually it's taking 3 and it's minusing it by 10, right? Because it does this first, and then we'll do this second. But just like math, you can go, well, let's wrap this in parentheses, times 2, and we're going to get a completely different answer. Now we get minus 4, because we're taking 3 minus 5, which is negative 2, times 2 equals negative 4. So order of operations is important. Now, Python calls any number that has a decimal a float. Okay, so you can take 0.1 plus 0.1, you're going to get your 0.2. Now notice this, if I take 10 divided by 5, I get 2.0. The reason is that anytime Python executes division, it always returns a float. Okay, so what if you needed a whole number? If you needed a whole number, you could wrap 10 divided by 5 in an integer function, and now you get 2. All right, so that works. So that is basic mathematical equations. If you need a number that's a string, all you need to do is wrap it in quotes. Just keep in mind that you cannot add this now to another string. I mean, to an integer. You cannot add a string to an integer, right? Well, this will not work. So there are cases in where numbers will be wrapped in string as a string, but anytime math is involved, you need to make sure that those stay as actual integers or floats. All right. By the way, if I click here and I hit D twice, it actually clears that cell out. All right. Last thing I want to talk about is commenting on code. So it's really important that your code is always clean, easy to read, and you want to make sure that any code that you leave can be interpreted correctly by anyone that has to come after you and see your code, or really just for your well-being as well. When you have to come back to your code after months, you can kind of follow along and see what happened. So comments are an important part of any programming language. In Python, to do a single line comment, you use a pound symbol like this and say this is a comment. Now you'll notice that if I run this, it returns correctly 10. And that's because it's completely ignoring this line here, because this is a comment. All right. Now, what if you need a multi-line comment like this is multiple lines? And we need to comment this whole thing out. And then we want to do 5 plus 5. Okay, well, to do this, you have to add 3. Sometimes it's hard because it thinks it knows better than you. 3 quotation marks, both at the beginning and at the end. And this allows you to do multi-line commenting. So you could do something like that. This is multiple lines. Now if I run this, it runs correctly and it returns 10. All right, so that covers both strings and numbers. And in our next lesson, we're going to be tackling lists. So stay tuned for that.